There we go.
Welcome to the live stream. We've got an interesting use case for you today with the OpenShift installer. So we want to Zitify the OpenShift installer so that we can install private clusters as well as public clusters. Don't need Ziti to install a public cluster, but of course you want to have Ziti in your cluster so that you can privately expose the API server or cluster workloads. So we're going to dive in. Clint is going to drive today. How you feeling, Clint?
Well, Ken, I can say that this is probably going to be a dumpster fire. So I expect it'll be highly
Expect good
entertaining
things.
for anybody who wants to watch this thing just crash and burn.
All right, all right.
Because before we started, I pulled all the code and brought it into my IDE. I use Goland. And when I did that, I realized that the code that has been written for openshift-install. Are we sharing too? Or so there's code in here that uses the Unix package, and that Unix package is not available inside of Windows. So
Okay.
when I came in here, pretty much everything seems to work, or at least compile, all the way up until I get into Windows. Sorry, all the way up until I get to this file. So I don't know if the whole thing actually would have compiled or not, but that was unexpected. Perhaps not so unexpected. Like I actually went into the Slack channel of Kubernetes, which has an OpenShift dev channel inside of it. I asked a question, although it hasn't been answered yet, asking if there's any way for a Windows developer to do this. But I kind of expect this to be like the Apple answer of why aren't you using Fedora?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but anyway, so then I tried to use WSL. Goland has this nice capability. Come on, oh, actually, I'm actually inside of WSL here. I have another program that is an X server that I built for Windows. So this is actually the Linux version of Goland running in my Linux environment. If I go to File and Open, hello, can I go to
Hello.
File? Can I go to File? I can't seem. Wow, this is exciting. My CPU is at 100%. Who knows what this stream is like? What is going on here? Somebody's soaking up all the cores. Oh, so Go does that. Go. So right now I'm building from
A
the
little bit
command line.
CPU hungry.
Oh yeah, it will eat all the CPU that it can eat. And look at my memory just climbing. It's like Price is Right. Is it going to stop?
Oh man.
Like I probably started it around here. I
Well,
don't
while
know.
that's catching up, a little bit of background for anybody that's gonna join us here in the chat. And if you're catching up on the live stream, uh, don't be shy and skip ahead and poke questions in there. Don't mind repeating ourselves. We're here for you. So the basically we last week we zetified the OC command, the OpenShift CLI, which is a fork of kubectl, which is the Kubernetes upstream CLI. And so that enables you to run the OC command with a ZD configuration file and contact anything inside the cluster, including the API server itself. And that could be a private cluster, but that still requires a bootstrapping step where the cluster is either internet exposed or you brought your own networking. So we're going to make that even easier with today's Zetification so that that bootstrapping step itself can be done privately over a zero trust ZD network.
Yeah, I really wanted to have a diagram for that, but
Well, I
this
could
is
work on that
this
for you.
has this here has stymied me. Also, this build is just like really slow, and I don't know.
Mm,
So I use WSL1 as opposed to WSL2. I do that because WSL2 doesn't have the ability to use the same IP address as my local machine. Anyway, it's supposedly faster than WSL2 for file access, but I don't know. why it's taking forever. It's certainly taking its sweet time.
All right.
If we need to build this every single time that we make a code change, it's going to be
That could be
just
time
going
consuming.
to be it's going to be awful.
You want me to spin up a muscular OpenShift, Red Hat or CentOS 8 box in AWS so you can just remotely build it?
No, I don't think that's going to make a significant difference, to be honest. I think it's just doing a whole bunch of stuff. First time around, it's always a bit slow. Hopefully, the second time, if I run it a second time, it wouldn't be so terrible. But we'll find out. Basically, what I want to do is I want to find all of the net.dial. Oh, that's pretty neat. Well, so I didn't expect this. So there must be a file that what's it called? Golang puts somewhere. Where's the .idea? Yeah. So I actually marked these files with breakpoints in my Windows editor ahead of time, just looking for these. And then I did not expect to see them breakpointed inside of Linux, but JetBrains must be doing something interesting like that. So I'm going to just write out some. Oh, I wonder if they have any log stuff in here. I just want to see if this stuff gets compiled and if it will actually fire when I try to use this openshift-install command, which also I have never used myself, so I'll need some sort of guidance as to what kind of command to run.
Okay. I'll start putting together some clipboard notes from past commands that I've run. I usually do it in 3 life cycle stages. Create an install config, which is a YAML file that I can then edit to tailor the cluster config. Then I do a create, and then I do a destroy to finish up. A little aside about OpenShift installer, it's using a similar approach to configuration as the kops CLI. So it's configuration in Go, in a Go binary, that generates a Terraform plan and then uses the Terraform state to compute the delta between the desired state and the observed state. And that changed from OpenShift 3 to 4. Before, it used to be all Ansible playbooks.
Well, here we're putting it to the test to see how long it takes to make the smallest of code changes and to be able to use our print line debugging, which is the worst. So I might try to figure out if I can run delve through this and figure out how to attach to it, because this
Mm-hmm.
is going to just
Well, we're
be
certainly at an exploratory stage, so that's not
this is going to be
unexpected.
horrible. Okay, well that build time was reasonable. Where does it build it to? And it's annoying. I really just want to be able to run this to see if it actually has picked up or will pick up the changes. I'm relatively sure it will.
And you're trying to build it on the. Did you say you are able to
I've
build
already
it?
successfully
Okay,
built it. I just want to see it hit my comment here, and I want to
right.
see if it actually creates a net dial if it creates a netcon through this net dial command or not. And if it does, then I'll have an entry point as to where I can stick some Ziti in here.
Right.
I am not sure if it is going to be an agent, but the only places I found .dial when I was looking through this before is in the SSH.go file, the validation, which is in the AWS package file, and this overt, which I'm not sure what overt stands for.
Overt is the upstream open source project for Red Hat virtualization.
Gotcha. So I just want
It
to know
probably has something to do
if
with.
we can tie into one of these. So generally speaking, when you're going to go Zitify something, you need to find wherever you're calling net.dial, and you'll see it will always have a host and it'll always have a port, because
Right.
that's how you
That's how
get a
things are
connection,
done.
right?
Right.
Except not with us. So I just need
We're
to
going to go
I
one
just
level lower.
no, we're going to provide the connection. So I wouldn't say one level lower. We still contact an IP address and a port. It's just always the same IP address and same port, regardless of what the service that we're trying to dial is.
So, sorry to make you repeat yourself, but to clarify, when you say we're still going to dial an IP address, what you mean is we're going to provide a dial connection, a network connection, but we're going to provide different information, right? We're not actually going to provide a host and a port. We're going to provide a ZD service name.
I'm going to turn that around and say that it doesn't matter, because
Okay.
when you are trying to communicate to another entity, you are invariably using either UDP or TCP in today's world, and you will thus have to have an IP address and a port. So when you do those dialing, you're still going to dial, and at the end of the day, the computer will still create a connection to an IP address and to a port. That is always going to happen no matter what. What Ziti does is it just abstracts away a tiny bit to the developer what the IP address is and what the port is, because to the Ziti developer, none of those things matter. Instead, we have the idea of a service. Let's see if I still have to go update this doc, but see what happens if I go to OpenZiti. Come on, you can do it. Services, overview. Do I have a nice doc? I don't. Nah, that's not nice. Let's see. How about quick overview? Here we go. There we go. Okay. So there's always going to be, the SDK is always going to talk to some IP address on some port, but the purple line here is synthesized as, in this case, it'll be, you know, Kubernetes cluster API, whatever creates the Kubernetes. What is that called? The OpenShift API? Is that what it is?
The API server.
Yeah, it's whatever you would normally contact in order to create the cluster, or do whatever work you're trying to do. So it doesn't have to be OpenShift. Obviously, it could be whatever.
Okay, so with OpenShift installer, then there will be two different stages. First, you'll be contacting some cloud provider to create the infrastructure
Yeah,
resources, like the virtual
Terraform kind of
machines and
stuff.
load balancers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So if we're doing an OpenShift install for a private cluster, then that's going to involve a load balancer that's not actually reachable right away from the internet. It's going to be attached to the inside of a VPC only. So the second stage of the OpenShift installer can use the regular internet to do that part. We don't need to Zitify that part because it's just going to talk to the AWS APIs publicly at the cloud provider using our access key to get in and create whatever OpenShift says is necessary to create a cluster.
Yep.
And then the second stage is it's going to need to contact that API server URL, which is the internal load balancer inside the VPC. So that's the part it needs to use ZD for.
Yeah, and this is where I don't know enough about OpenShift installer. I don't know what it's trying to do. From my limited experience, I thought it was trying to create me that cluster, which means I need to have some sort of API server somewhere, right? That it's going to talk to.
Yep, it'll be predictable. That is based on the configuration that we feed the command, we'll be able to predict the URL to the API server, and that's the Kubernetes API server created inside of the OpenShift cluster. And that'll be resolvable as a terminator. Well, that is, we'll create a Ziti service with a terminator config for that URL, and then we can use a predictable Ziti service name to do our Ziti dial to get there.
Okay.
I'll start setting up the Ziti network side of it so that we have that terminator config for the egress portion inside the VPC.
Well, before we do that, I
Okay.
need to know what command I should be like. I need some pull secret, I guess, to in order to test
Hmm.
any of this that it works. Like, can we? I don't know. I don't know what to do here. Like, well, basically, I don't know enough about how OpenShift installer works and what it does
Yep.
yet to
Okay.
understand what I don't have. I do know I used it one time, but it failed for me. Remember, I didn't have the right privileges to the Amazon environment.
Yep. All right. Well, the first command is pretty simple. It's just going to be you're just going to run OpenShift install, and then there'll be two positional params: create install config, and I will put that in our chat.
Install config. Okay.
Installed hyphen config.
Yeah. Installed with a D. Okay.
No
No.
ed, just
Yep.
OpenShift install, create install config, and install config is hyphenated.
Yep. I had gone through this, but it requires me to name the cluster, and then it requires a pull secret.
Right. So the pull secret, I'll paste that in our private chat because that's a secret for our Red Hat Web Console from our Red Hat Web Console. I don't know how to change it. It's going to paste it with asterisks though, so I'm not worried about you pasting it on screen. But you can always do it off screen if you want to. And there we go.
Oh, can I use NetFoundry? ad.netfoundry.io? Does that matter?
Let me pop back over so I can see what you're looking at. The yeah, the base domain AD is fine.
Okay.
It it doesn't matter which domain you use. Your credential just has to have access to it, which it obviously does. And then oh, that's right. You ran into the VPC count limit, like the ceiling, the max number of VPCs last time. Did you already clean up some VPCs in that region?
Nope. I've chosen a different reason this time. I used US West.
That might be all that's necessary, honestly.
I still don't have the pull secret anywhere.
I know. I'm sending it to you.
Okay, just making sure.
I'm going to send it to you as a pull secret.txt in direct message
Sure.
in Mattermost. Then we can figure out how to rotate it later. We don't have anything sensitive in our console right now, but I'm pretty sure that's just like an enrollment token that gives the cluster the ability to join our Red Hat console.
I just paste it over here just in case. Okay, it didn't matter. I thought it would do that. Okay, so now I have an install config,
Awesome. Let's peek inside and
but it isn't going to
see
have that
if,
secret.
yeah, it's a good thing you're thinking ahead.
Well, here.
Well,
What do
if
you
you
want
can
to see?
size it,
Yeah,
I
that's what I'm
want to
going to do.
know if it has already conveniently given us the server URL, like predicted the server URL, so we can make a note of that. Because I think it's
Oh,
going to
well, so I
consume
can,
that YAML file.
let's see. I'm looking. I'm looking. I see a cluster network that has been provided. Oh, I know what I can do. Let's see if this works.
I don't even think it's called AWS to create anything yet. Just to pull for available regions and VPCs, or what was it? Oh yeah, hosted zones in Route 53.
Here we go. How about that?
Is it all in one line? Okay,
Yeah, it is. I checked first.
nice.
Yeah, so you can
Metadata
see
name.
got
Okay.
this here, and it's got this here, and it's got this here. That's the only
All
server-esque
right.
looking stuff that I saw.
Okay. All right. So it hasn't spelled it out for us. I did make a mental note that the API server URL is predictable, and I'll have some time to work on that. I just need to make a note. Actually, if you could message back to me the verbatim name Clint cluster OCT15. Is that what it is?
Yep, out today.
Right, I can just avoid. There we go. Just avoid human error and transcribing that, and I'll get to work on predicting the URL so I can set up the server egress inside the VPC for the Ziti service. I know it's based on that name. So did you want to just go ahead and create a public cluster, which would be publish external? See that directive there, top level directive publish with value external, capital E. That is basically a public cluster. So if you were to run that, then you could exercise the command to make sure it's working. It wouldn't be
Command.
using the ZD path just yet. You would say openshift-install create cluster. Yep. And now, so you're in the directory installer. The
Hmm.
installer is going to use this directory as like a project directory. It's going to litter it with files. So you
Okay.
might want to run that. You might actually want to move your install config into another directory so that to keep them separate from your source project.
And just do
Then run your create cluster command there.
okay.
You just want to make sure that it has the ability that it still works and everything. How are you thinking about providing the ZD config file to the Zitify installer, or have you not gotten that far yet?
Generally speaking, I would follow the same thing we did for ZSSH, which is provide or expect a given file at a certain location, the same way that kubectl does, where the .cube/config kind of idea, I think, is perfectly reasonable for it.
Okay.
Um, I would probably do something cute, like put it into the .zd, though. Like I generally tend to favor using just .zd and putting all the files in there.
Okay.
So like I would have a .zd/oc.json. That would be kind of what I would do.
Sounds good.
So that would be an easy way to get the default in there. In this exercise, I plan to just hard code it right on. Like I'm going to write it
Okay.
in. But then also providing flags to the command line is an obvious next step. And then if it's like kubectl, where you have, or like this actually, where you have a file that gets emitted, you could potentially bake it into the create install command so that you're creating a private install, right? We could fork install, or what was it, create cluster, and then have it emit what the service name should be. You can do a bunch of stuff at that point, right? Like,
Well, we could extend the install config schema to have a ZD service name option or ZD config directive also, just like
well,
you're talking
sure,
about doing for the kube
yeah,
config.
yeah, for sure. That it does get, while that is convenient, It depends on the usage and how the usage works. For example, if you are using OC as kubectl, doing your git pods or whatever list vlogs or
Right.
whatever, it's going to use the kubeconfig file because OC
Right.
is just reading that kubeconfig. If this does anything like that, because like literally we are at the limit of how much I have used openshift-install right now. I've
I
already
got you.
yeah. So I don't know what it does or how it does it, but if there's a file, then it makes sense, then great. If it doesn't make sense, it's a one-time thing, then it's not so important to me to just provide it with a flag.
So I have an idea for how this could end up being a really smooth total CLI experience. If we extended the install config schema to have the Ziti config and the Ziti service name optionally, then when the installer runs, I know for a fact it's going to create a subdirectory in your project called auth, and that's going to have in it a kube config for the new cluster. There's also going to be a credentials file there for the cluster's built-in web UI.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the kube admin credential that you get when you first create a cluster. So that kube config, we could go ahead and add the path to the same ZD identity that we used to
Right,
run the installer.
right,
And then the OC command is ready to go. All you have to
right.
do is say kubeconfig invar
Yeah.
equals auth kubeconfig,
Yep.
and you're ready to go with OC.
Yep.
That'll be
Does this step
nice.
take a long time? Is it like provisioning a bunch of Amazon resources here?
Yep, that's going to take a long time.
Yeah,
So
that's a
if you
bummer.
just wanted to see it work, actually, it would be useful to let it run because it is going to eventually spit out the API server URL, which will give us the naming convention if I haven't found it by then, and
Oh,
probably will find it before then. But yeah, might be useful if you don't mind just leaving it running.
I was
I
going to leave it
can,
running anyway.
okay.
That's fine.
If you want to put it in the background, you could disown it or steal your shell
Nah,
history if you
it'll
want to
stay.
just
It'll
open up
stay
a new
right there.
terminal. Okay. I'll see if I can find that naming convention, unless somebody in chat can give us a lifeline. That'd be great. Naming convention for the OpenShift API server URL when installed in AWS. Because we need to be able to predict that so we can create our ZD service for the final end-to-end test. I might be able to sneak a peek at the load balancer if it's already created that and see what it's put into the hosted zone in your if I go into the AWS console for your account.
I'm actually kind of amazed I could actually develop using the restream. Like the latency
Oh yeah.
between the two screens on my local computer is negligible, which I find interesting.
Oh, you're using it as a monitor.
Yeah, I got
That's cool.
restream sitting over here.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, I see us and I see restream there. So that's cool. It must be just displaying whatever it's sending, which is so smart. Oh, I can go full resolution here. That's interesting.
Say more. Sounds interesting.
Oh, I realized that Restream didn't have my 1080p visage, so now it's in 1080p.
Oh, okay.
We'll see. We'll see. What's the minute mark? Or what are we at? Where's the little timer?
We're at 30 minutes.
Right on the money?
Yeah, right on the money.
Huh.
Just as you said that.
I saw a little timer somewhere. Where is it?
It's hovering my top left in the studio view.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. It's over the. Oh, I see it. It's on the view. Yeah, cool. I was just looking through to see if there are any more places where a dialer might be being invoked, just to see if there was. I was trying to trace this back. That's what I was doing, trying to trace it back to where it actually gets called. New client is only called from one place. Yep. Log gathered bootstrap.
I need the AWS account ID. Oh wait, I found it.
Here it is. Ha!
I'm
It beat
in.
you. Oh, it beat you.
It did. Oh my god.
How embarrassing. You
I'll
know,
get you back. Okay, 20 minutes. API. That looks juicy. I'll take it. So we're going to focus on the Zitification here. But if anybody has questions about Ziti or Ziti orchestration, that is Ziti development or Ziti XOps, fire away. We've got the. I'll put the helpful link up in stream here for your reference. Let's see.
love helpful links.
Ziti.dev is the place to go.
Whew, sounds so much better.
Sorry about that. I'll try switching my audio over
Yeah,
on an unproven setup here.
it is pretty harsh. Oh my god, that sounds so much better. I didn't really notice it for the first, like, say, 20 minutes, but for the last 10, it's been hitting my brain. Let's see, what was I doing? I was trying to follow the create cluster command. Where did that thing go? Create cluster. I thought it was in here. Yeah, right here. Create command.
Go
Go to save.
goes
Oh my
NetFoundry
goodness.
standard
Love it.
issue Jabra headsets.
Love it. We got to tone that ass down just a tiny bit. Tone it down. Very,
All right,
very
into the
harsh.
zone, into the
Yeah,
zone.
that's better.
Okay.
All right, so let's see, where was I? I was trying to follow new create command. That's what I wanted to see. What does this do? Run the target command. Writable asset. Hmm. Yeah, right now all I'm trying to do is understand what this API looks like so I can maybe see if there are pieces of the puzzle I haven't found yet, which is why I was trying to find.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I was trying to find anywhere that tries to dial without being able to debug, without being able to step into each function, which is like normally what I would do. I have to flail about, find it in the code, and try to trace it manually, which is not a task I particularly enjoy.
Hmm.
Especially because a lot of people who like to write elegant code will do stuff like this, which makes total sense to them. This is clearly a writable asset array, but I don't know what a writable asset is. I go to writable asset, and it says that it's an asset that has files that can be written to the disk. Great. I don't know what that means. So I don't know what it's used for. I don't know how to supply them. I don't know why they're supplied. Right. So there's a lot of API I gotta slug through to have a clue as to what this thing's trying to do. And then the new create command just makes a new one. Where's my writable asset? Right here. T.assets. Targets. Install config target. Manifest ignition cluster. I suppose install config target is the one I actually wanted. Manifests ignition. These are just Cobra commands.
And Cobra is a framework for creating CLIs, right?
Yeah, Go has a really nice CLI. It's a really nice language to write a CLI in, and thus far it seems like Cobra is without a doubt the de facto standard / winner of the CLI provider tools kind of war.
Mm-hmm.
The Ziti CLI also uses Cobra for what it's worth, so we use Cobra everywhere. Kubernetes used Cobra, OC used Cobra, this uses Cobra. But not being able to debug it is just an absolute nightmare. Now it's going to wait up to 20 minutes. This is riveting, riveting.
You use the AD zone. I guess if it's an internal cluster, then that name goes to the internal load balancer. If it's external, it goes to external. I can see the mapping in AWS.
I see that's 6443. That seems to be like the Kubernetes API default.
Yeah, for HTTPS. 6442, I think, is maybe an older default for non-SSL. But I usually see 6443, yeah.
Yeah, it's not responding still.
Did your installer command fully return?
No, it's sitting there waiting.
Okay.
It has informed me that it will dutifully wait up to 20 minutes.
Yep. Do you need that to proceed in order to?
Yeah, because I still don't know if, so far we are only hitting public APIs, probably using Terraform, right?
Correct.
So we have not attempted to do anything with our cluster yet. I don't know
Correct.
what openshift-installer will do in that cluster, but I need to find whatever that command is in order to find what and where it tries to do its dial. So my presumption is that it's going to happen in that AWS. Where's the AWS one?
Right.
So there's this gather command. Where I'll find that dials again. Validation is one place, and
Mm-hmm.
no,
Okay.
that's the only one. So this is the only place where there is a dial. I also got a kick out of this when I was looking through this, where they have a special if block where if it's e to e.local, it's like, yeah, we'll just skip on out of out of this validate service endpoints business. But this is going to actually probe the endpoint and make sure that it can connect there. I expect this is the magical place. I just want confirmation that this is the magical place. But I suppose what we can do in the meantime is I can just go and get a Ziti SDK that we've already done and add it to this mix, compile it all in. That's what we should do. So I'll do that. I will go and I will open my ZSSH project. And since I know that is going to work in Windows, which is my main OS, I will open that back here. If I can just find it, ZSSH, where did I put you? Oh, I put you under incubator. That's where you should be. Okay. And the only reason I'm doing this, oh my goodness, that okay, I can do this. I know I can. So my monitor is like 1440 high normally, and so the 1080 has made small little differences in my window where I can only drag my mouse in that range, and if I don't, then Windows is like, no, there's nothing over there for you to drag this to. Like you can see, I can go up to this corner like this, and no matter how far I move my mouse, it doesn't go any further. But if I go whoop right there, whoop, see, it'll disappear and go to the other monitor for me.
A little disorienting.
Yeah, it's well, when I move stuff from one place to the other, it's very disorienting because like they are aligned perfectly right here, like they're two identical monitors, but because they're now two different resolutions, when I drag it over, it goes. Anyway, all right. So let's find .dial inside of here. Up. So here's where we have dial options. That's not what I want. I want this. So this is the Ziti code that is necessary to basically replace the. Where are we going? Yeah, that's what I want. So basically, I want to replace the net.dial with a Ziti.dial. And so if we look through here, this is all a bunch of boilerplate to just get down to this little business right here where we call dial using the config provided, the Ziti config, and the service found from dial with options up here. So this dial with options is really the guy that I want, which means I want this context. And so to get that context, I do this right here. So I'm going to copy that line. I come over here, right here. Then get config is a local function. So I'm going to go copy that because I am super lazy. And I'm just going to paste it right there because that's good enough for me. I'm then going to go find the config package because I'm lazy and I don't want to type everything out. I'll copy these two guys because I need some dependencies. Okay, I like putting it at the bottom, so I'll save that. Hover over this because it doesn't like to do that without me clicking on it, which I don't understand. Config. Oh, no. Config. Dot. Ooh, okay, I guess I'll just go like this. There it is. And now this should do a bunch of stuff over here. Oh, because I have synced the dependencies, it might go and look for all new updates and whatnot. I need an F. That dial with F is a. In this case, it is the flags that we have passed in. So I don't need an F. I am just going to say C : actually, let's do /temp/id.json. This is the file that will represent the identity. That's what you and I were talking about earlier. I'm just waiting for this to do the needful. Come on, you can do it. All right, well, while that keeps going. So now I have a context. Why won't you? My goodness. Oh, well, we know why it won't. That's why it won't. So busy. All right. So okay, I can't double click it. I can't highlight, copy. Oh man, go land. Come on, WSL. I mean, it's not like it's some kind of wimpy laptop. You know, I got 12 cores here. Got 12 cores, they're all just being annihilated.
Those are some nice cores you got there.
Yeah. All right. I don't know why Goland has decided to become totally unresponsive. I have clearly some available CPUs. Where is my new window? CPU. Yeah, see, like that's barely. Like, come on, WSL. You can do this. Get with a picture.
Do you want me to go ahead and pre-create the Ziti bastion inside your VPC?
I mean, we got 12 minutes left. I don't know if it's worth it. Okay, here now it's
I'm
back.
halfway through the steps, so I'll just do it for the sake of the exercise in
Okay.
case we need it.
All right. So now I've got new context with config, which is right here. Now I'm going to get the service name. That's not necessary because this is just throwing it away. It's just checking to make sure the service exists. And then I'm going to dial with some options, but I'm not going to do dial with options over here. I'm just going to, oh, come on, Goland. UI was frozen for 15 seconds. Details saved to thread dumps. All right. Whenever this decides to get with a picture, I'm going to just do a dial service name. And I really need the code completion because I don't remember our own APIs all that well. Oh, just dial service name. So this is going to be the Kubernetes API or Red Hat or whatever. All right, so that's the name of the service that we're going to dial. I guess we can do this if checking because that's how Go wants to do its error handling. So sure. Okay. Okay. Let's see. This is new SSH stuff. We don't care about that. Factory.config. What's factory in this? All right, we don't care about that. This is the dial. Okay, so that's really all we care about is the dial. And that's what. Well, I guess I'll keep that in here. It's illustrative. Now that should be all we need to do whenever WSL wants to get around to it. And so we have added the ZD dependency. Apparently, it has finished syncing itself. We'll see if it actually compiles now. We've added the ZD dependency. I have hard-coded a path to a ZD configuration file, which uses a function provided by the ZD SDK called new context with config, which basically establishes that, where did that, which establishes this little link right here, indicated by that really fancy lock icon.
So secure.
So right, it's going to lock. It's super secure. So that's what this will do, is it will create the connection from the running context in my local computer to the edge router. Once I've done that, I will then establish a connection to the actual API, and that will involve my SDK asking the controller for the service. The controller lets me know whether or not I have access to the service. I'm simplifying what happens, but that's basically what happens. And if I do, presumably I do, then the SDK will dial that service, and then the ZD network will formulate the path from the SDK to the API. And then once that path has been formulated, I will be returned a connection, which I can then just shovel bytes over. And that's all. That's all a Go connection is a reader and a writer, basically a way of sending bytes and array of reading bytes. And that's it. But because I'm running this in WSL, it's apparently a pokey. It's really pokey. So let's see if this thing completes its little indexing and step here. 13 minutes has it really been? Come on, can't be. Look, it looks like oh, okay, come on, show me no red. That'd be fantastic if I copied everything. I did it, Ken. I know you didn't have any. And this failed.
Oh no. Let me zoom in on that.
Connection refused. Well, that's also a major bummer.
Something prevented it from finishing. The Bootstrap host wasn't able to talk to. Oh, that's actually that's the same URL. Yeah, okay. Let me see if I ever got anything back from. No, I'm still not getting the server certificate back from API server on that public load balancer. So, well, I wonder if there's like a retry or maybe some helpful log output. We're a little short on time, yeah.
You would hope that this is idempotent, right? And
It is Terraform, yeah.
no matter how many times you run it, it should quote unquote figure it out.
Yep.
So I should be able to just do this again, which it did. It noticed that it didn't have to load the credentials, it didn't have to consume the installer, it didn't have to create
the resources.
So it definitely seems as though it has picked up from where it left off.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a tf state file in this directory.
TF state, sure do. Well, but we did. I mean, like, I don't know
You're pretty
that
sure
this is.
you
I don't know
found the
this is
spot.
the right play. I don't know, but I mean,
Yeah.
like, it sure seems like it since it comes from this thing called validate endpoints. It
Yep.
doesn't. It doesn't return a connection, which is kind of, and then it closes it. So it's kind of questionable whether it's the final. Like, it can't be the final answer. It's got to be done somewhere else. Now that I looked at this little bit right here, I
That
thought
looks like the
maybe.
right spot.
Well, I thought maybe this was going to be returning a connection along with, or like either return me the connection or the error list. But this is simply returning an error list. Like if this was, if it did something like this, what is it, net.conf, Go parlance. If it did something like, and probably a pointer. If it was returning that, then I was like, oh yeah, this is probably the place, but it's not doing this. And so there's somewhere else that this dial happens that I just can't find in an hour with building in WSL because I don't have Linux as my main operating system, which is the kind of stuff you run into when you do these kind of things.
So basically, you're just a little bit CPU constrained with the emulation or the
I, I
virtual
have a
machine.
I have a feeling that's what's going on, but
Yeah,
honestly,
it's probably not
just
giving it all of your cores, right? It's a virtual
I don't
machine running inside of Windows, so it
I don't.
must
I mean, I
have
don't know
limited.
because you saw when it was doing its thing, all my cores were lit.
So there's some kind of um, load balancing there or hyper-threading, maybe.
I don't know. It's WSL1, so it's a lightweight virtual machine. It's not an actual virtual machine, and it was able to saturate all of the CPUs. So this is the same project being pulled up in Windows, and you'll see the indexing that happens here. Also, somewhat slow. The first time you build a lot of stuff, it goes and it pulls a whole ton of all these dependencies have to get pulled down. They have to get put into the go path package place or wherever they stuff them. So like this is running just on my raw machine right now, and you can see it's doing the same sort of thing. It's lighting up the cores. So it's chugging. So I don't know. Like when I started doing this before, the first time I did it in native Windows, it took a long time. I can tell you that without being able to debug it, it sincerely hampers my ability to get in here and, be successful.
Yeah. Well, I was able to create the Ziti Bastion, and I was just going to see if I
Did it
could.
pop up?
Yep, it showed up as registered in the orchestration console.
This is still chugging.
I was just going to see if I could get a certificate going through the Ziti service, since we were having trouble hitting the API server on the public load balancer endpoint. I'm not getting anything. I've got an intercept, but I don't have I'm not getting anything back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're at 2 minutes to go. I don't think in
All
2
right.
minutes we're going to get much further than this.
We're not going to bring it across the line this hour, but what do you want to do next time? Do you
How
want
can I delete
to
this?
the
Can I
whole
do,
cluster?
yeah, can I do
Just
a delete cluster?
you guessed it. Your intuitions are
Oh my
sound.
goodness.
It's actually a beautiful experience. I have really loved working with the it's destroy, not delete. But I've loved working with the CLI so far.
Cool. Next time, I don't know. Like, we probably should do something that it has a better opportunity of success. Like the one that we were thinking about doing before, I enjoy and also would be a learning experience for myself. Is JavaScript reflect client kind of thing where we just make an echo server using JavaScript.
Mhm.
I know nothing basically about JavaScript other than some of the syntax. I don't have a lot of great tooling for it, but I think that would be neat. It'd be fun. It's a toy example. It would serve
Sure.
the only purpose it would serve from my point of view is to produce another piece of content that can be used as an example for somebody to, learn from, which is not useless. That's
What about the possibility of finishing this up in a second hour?
Well, if you wanted to do that, you should have led with that. Sure,
Actually, I was
we can certainly try
assuming
it again.
that would be one of the
You thought you
options.
teed it up and I'd hit it out of the park, but I didn't.
That's all right.
Sure,
Cool.
we
Yeah.
could
You'd
try.
be game for that? All right.
Yeah.
So we could now I think we pretty much have a loose list of what the remaining pieces would be. We could just pick up the zetification right where you left it, and I'll already have the infrastructure side ready to go.
You just need to send me the file, right?
The
After this is done creating, or
I can
is the
send you a Ziti config. Yeah,
will the create itself require the Kubernetes API? That's what I'm wondering.
it will. Yeah, that's the whole point. Is that the second half of the second stage of the
Okay.
of the create is gonna, like, once it's done with the cloud provider, it hands off to the Kubernetes API server. So it needs to.
Can OC reconfigure that cluster? Like, can you add another node? Would that be an example of using the Kubernetes API? Or actually, sorry, OpenShift-install, I should say.
I think you would use the. I'm guessing you would use the installer to modify, like to add a node to the Terraform plan.
Okay, that's what I would want to understand better, because if that's a good example, then we could add a node and remove a node using OpenShift-install,
Yes.
and that would
Yes.
certainly require the Kubernetes API, and then we can make the cluster and make sure it works, and then just
Right.
try to do that one. Does that make sense?
Yep. The installer will talk to the API server, but it really only talks to the API server to do the validation and the initial configuration. Maybe somebody can tell us what else it does, but the OC command is just that's going to do all the heavy lifting for talking to the API server.
Cool. All
Good
right.
stuff.
Well, then
Thanks, Clint. This was awesome.
let's try again next week.
All
See what
right.
happens.
Cool. All right. I'll see you later.
Amen.